Senate will come to order. Mr. Carpenter, please call the roll.
Senators Aguilar, Baumgardner, Cook, Corum, Court, Crowder, Donovan, Finberg, Fields, Garcia, Gardner, Guzman, Hill, Holbert, John, Jones, Jones,
Absent.
Kagan, Kafalis, Kerr, Lambert, Lumberg, Marble, Martinez-Humenic, Martinez-Humenic,
Okay. Excused.
Merrifield, Moreno, Neville, Priola, Scott, Smallwood, Sonnenberg, Tate, Todd, Williams, Zenzinger, Jones.
Let's go ahead and roll.
Mr. President.
Here. 34 present, 0 absent, 1 excused. We have a quorum. Senator Court.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate Rule 1B be suspended to allow someone other than a senator to lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
The motion is to suspend Senate Rule 1B so that our guests can lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Ayes have it, and that motion is adopted. Senator Court, would you like to introduce our guests?
Thank you, Mr. President. Our guests today are Scout Pack Troop 48 from Golden. One of them, Tay, is the son of my boss at Red Rocks Community College where I teach, and the rest of them are his troop colleagues. So they will come up and say the pledge for us this morning, and I so appreciate all of them being here.
Guys, why don't you stand?
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job, guys. Good job. Oh, wait. I didn't say the word. Click. All right. Approval of the journal, Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the reading of the journal for Wednesday, March the 28th, be dispensed with, and that the journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You heard the motion. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the motion is adopted. Committee reports.
March 28, 2018, the Committee on Judiciary has that on consideration had hearing on the following appointments and recommends the appointments be placed on the consent calendar confirmed. Members of the Juvenile Parole Board for a term expiring November 15, 2018. Rachel Victoria Lovendahl of Westminster, Colorado, to serve as representative of the Colorado Department of Education, occasioned by the resignation of Barbara Hickman of Denver, Colorado, appointed. March 28, 2018, the Committee on Judiciary has had on consideration had hearing on the following appointments and recommends the appointments be placed on the consent calendar confirmed. Members of the Juvenile Parole Board for a term expiring November 15, 2021. Heidi Jean Hescliff of Colorado, to serve as a public member not employed by the state of Colorado, on occasion by the resignation of Chantal M. Schoenboom of Centennial, Colorado, appointed. March 28, 2018, Committee on Judiciary, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee following, Senate Bill 203, be as follows, estimated to be referred to Committee on Appropriations with a favorable recommendation. March 28, 2018, Committee on Judiciary, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee following, Senate Bill 212, be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations. March 28, 2018, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee following, House Bill 1046, be postponed indefinitely.
Senate Services.
Correctly engrossed, Senate Bill 52, 123, 185, 192, and 197, Senate General Resolution 9, correctly re-engrossed, Senate Bill 1 and 205, correctly revised, House Bill 1018, 1098, 1148, 1199, 1134, 1242, 1246, and 1254, correctly re-revised, House Bill 1238 and 1239.
Sponsorship addition to announce Senator Baumgartner will be added as a joint prime sponsor on House Bill 1242 with Senator Crowder and Representatives Kay Becker and Valdez. Please add Senator Martinez-Humenick to the roll. Third reading of bills, final passage. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title to House Bill 1148?
House Bill 1148 by Representative Michelson, Janae, and Senator Crowder concerning prohibition against care requiring step therapy for covered persons with stage 4 advanced metastatic cancer.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1148 and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1148. Are there any no votes? Senator Smallwood. With Senator Lundberg. Senator Lambert. Senator Marble. Senator Hill. Senator Neville. With 29 ayes, 6 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1148 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Sonnenberg, Senator John, Senator Merrifield, Senator Todd, Senator Williams, Senator Aguilar, Senator Kagan, Senator Moreno, Senator Kerr, Senator Fenberg, Senator Garcia, Senator Court, Senator Kafalis, Senator Fields, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Jones, Senator Coram, Senator Scott, Senator Priola, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Tate, Senator Baumgardner, Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of House Bill 1018.
House Bill 1018 by Representatives Carver and Jackson and Senators Zenzinger and Cook concerning a requirement that education to prevent human trafficking be included in the training to obtain a commercial driver's license.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. We move House Bill 1018 and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1018. Are there any no votes? Senator Crowder, Majority Leader Holbert, Senator Marble, Senator Neville, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Gardner, Senator Smallwood, Senator Tate, Senator Lundberg, Senator Lambert, Senator John, Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title of the House Bill? No votes. Hey, I'm skipping to the end on this. With 23 ayes, 12 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1018 is adopted. Co-sponsors? Senator Aguilar, Senator Williams, Senator Todd, Senator Merrifield, Senator Fenberg, Senator Kagan, Senator Moreno, Senator Fields, Senator Kafalis, Senator Kerr, Senator Guzman, Senator Donovan, Senator Garcia, I got you, Senator Priola, Senator Martinez-Humenick. Now can I go on? No? Okay. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title to House Bill 1242? Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Jeez.
House Bill 1242 by Representative Becker Kay and Valdez and Senator Crowder and Baumgardner concerning the salary categorization of locally elected officers in specified counties.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1242 and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Motion for the body is the adoption of House Bill 1242. Are there any no votes? Senator Marble, Senator Neville, Senator Lambert, Senator Gardner, Majority Leader Holbert. Senator Hill, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Lundberg, Senator Tate, (26 ayes, 9 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused). House Bill 1242 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title of the House Bill 1199?
House Bill 1199 by Representatives Catlin and McLaughlin and Senator Quorum concerning a process for the Groundwater Commission to use for approving aquifer storage and recovery plans and in connection therewith requiring that the Groundwater Commission promulgate rules governing its implementation of the process.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1199 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1199. Are there any no votes? Senator Marble, Senator Neville, Senator Smallwood, Majority Leader Holbert, Senator Lambert. With 30 ayes, 5 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1199 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Senator Crowder, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator John, Senator Cook, Senator Tate, Senator Priola, Senator Donovan, Senator Kerr, Senator Fenberg, Senator Merrifield, Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of Senate Bill 197.
Senate Bill 197 by Senator Sonnenberg and Crowder and Representative Lewis concerning an exception to the requirement that a motor vehicle clear port of entry for vehicles transporting agricultural commodities.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 197. Ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 197. Are there any no votes? Senator Kafalis, Senator Jones, Senator Moreno, Senator Donovan, Senator Merrifield, Senator Todd, Senator Williams, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Kerr, Senator Fenberg. With 25 ayes, 10 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 197 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Senator Scott, Senator Smallwood, Senator Tate, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Marble, Senator Cook, Senator Hill, Senator Neville, Senator Gardner, Senator Lambert, Senator Guzman, Senator Garcia, Senator Lundberg. Please add the President. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title of the House Bill 1246?
House Bill 1246 by Representative Danielson and Senator Quorum concerning updates to the Colorado Nursery Act and in connection therewith modernizing the act and protecting agriculture from pest diseases and noxious weeds.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1246. Ask for an aye vote on third and final passage.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of House Bill 1246. Are there any no votes? Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Neville, Senator Hill, Senator Cook, Senator Marble, Senator Smallwood, Senator Gardner, Senator Lundberg, Senator Lambert, Majority Leader Holbert, Senator Tate, 24 ayes, 11 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused. House Bill 1246 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Senator Scott, Senator Priola, Senator Crowder, Senator Todd, Senator Court, Senator Williams, Senator Donovan, Senator Aguilar, Senator Kerr, Senator Fields, Senator Merrifield. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to House Bill 1134.
House Bill 1134 by Representatives Pedersen and Wilson and Senators Merrifield, Martinez, Huminick, concerning eligibility of kindergarten students funded through early childhood at-risk enhancement positions.
Senator Martinez Huminick.
Thank you, Mr. President. We move House Bill 181134 for final passage on third and final reading and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of House Bill 1134. Are there any no votes? Senator Neville, Senator Gardner, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Baumgardner, Majority Leader Holbert, Senator Marble, Senator Hill, Senator Cook, Senator Smallwood, Senator Tate, Senator Lambert, Senator Lundberg. (23 ayes, 12 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused). House Bill 1134 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator John, Senator Todd, Senator Williams, Senator Aguilar, Senator Court, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Jones, Senator Kafalis, Senator Fields, Senator Kagan, Senator Fenberg, Senator Priola, Senator Donovan, Senator Kerr, Senator Moreno, Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title of the Senate Bill 123?
Senate Bill 123 by Senator Sonnenberg and Representative Liston, concerning asbestos trust claim transparency.
Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 123 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any further discussion? The motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 123. Are there any no votes? Senator Garcia, Senator Guzman, Senator Kafalis, Senator Fields, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Jones, Senator Moreno, Senator Kagan, Senator Court, Senator Fenberg, Senator Merrifield, Senator Todd, Senator Williams, Senator Aguilar, Senator Kerr, Senator Donovan, with 19 ayes, 16 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 123 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Cook, Senator Crowder, Senator Scott, Senator Gardner, Senator Lambert, Senator Tate, Senator Baumgardner. Please add the President. Senator Marble. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of Senate Bill 192.
Senate Bill 192 by Senator Marble and Representative Buck, concerning a requirement that a local government that interferes with oil and gas operations compensate persons damaged by the interference.
Senator Marble.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 192 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for a no vote on this bill. I would be remiss not to say what this bill's about. It's putting profit over people's safety in my mind. Local governments have the responsibility to protect their people, their health, their safety. And last year there were 15 explosions at oil and gas sites, killing 4 people. 3 of those 4 are not far from where I live and where I grew up, actually. And that's not right. We should have local governments be able to make these local government decisions. The second thing is, I would be remiss to not point out, since we're talking about property rights here, how the state has a systematic condemnation system for private gain that makes people sell their private property through a thing called forced pooling. But it's really corporate eminent domain. And it's so bad that the state has no idea how many people property is made to be sold to private companies to be condemned. But certainly, they do 300 to 500 of these forced pooling orders per year. And in a city, you're going under dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of properties. So it's thousands of people. And I find it outrageous. And so I see this bill further defending a company, an industry that's allowed to go in and put dangerous operations near people where no other industry is, and flaunts local control that way. And I just think all of us should be saying to ourselves, what's more important? Private company making corporate profit or people safety, especially since people are being killed by this industry and they want to put more wells near people. So I ask for a no vote.
Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, we had a very, I think, very solid and enlightening discussion on this yesterday on second reading, so I'm not going to try to repeat too much of that other than the fact that we have a system in the state of Colorado that provides for very strong oversight. We have the Colorado Oil and Gas Commission, which handles everything under the ground. And we have the ability with counties and cities to handle things above ground. And it's very segmented on who does what. This bill is only focused on one thing. If there is a decision to disallow or preempt an individual from using their private property rights in the case of an oil and gas lease or royalties, then the requirement would be that whoever is preempting, if it is a city and county government, that they would be required to provide compensation to that individual. That's the American way. We can talk about who has what decision. We have that clear in law in the state of Colorado. But if somebody is going to preempt someone else from the use of their private property, that's a pretty solid, long-held tradition that they should be compensated for that. That's what this bill is about, pure and simple. So, urge an aye vote.
Senator Marble.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are talking about two property owners with two property rights in this bill. But I guess according to some, you only think that one property right matters and it is okay to take the wealth and the investment and the ownership away from one because you deem them unworthy. I think that's wrong, and this bill says that if that happens, those property rights have to be, owners have to be compensated. It is only fair to give these people what is due them if another person thinks they have no rights to it. That in itself is pretty draconian. When you look at one group of people having such power over another to deny them the wealth and the assets of their own property and being able to enjoy those. Many of those who have invested in these oil and gas interests, they're for their retirement. It's for that extra money to maybe send their kids to college. It's just like an investment a person puts in property or anything else. If you own a piece of land, you should be able to build a house if you would like. And if you have your mineral rights, you should be able to access them without another person saying that, no, because you're a mineral owner, you are beneath them. They have first. You mean nothing, and you get nothing. And no apologies. It's just, we're better than you. And that's what you're telling these mineral owners. I urge an aye vote.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I come down here to strongly support this bill. I believe it is a matter of recognizing the rights of individual citizens to own and control their property. And when the government steps in and mows that down, there ought to be some consequence of remedy rather than just, oh, well, we can do this because we're bigger than you are. And that's really the argument that I hear on the other side against this. I come down here for another reason as well, though, and that is I just heard from this microphone a statement that I found to be extraordinary. And I believe that when things like statements that I believe are over the top, I think they should be challenged. And the quote I heard was, "People are being killed by this industry." There have been some unfortunate tragedies that have occurred that are surrounding this industry. But to make this statement as if there's some reckless attitude that should be controlled, some great danger, I believe is far beyond the truth. It's like accusing the auto tire industry of killing people because there can be a defect in a tire. It's rare, but it can occur. Or how about the medical industry? How many people come out of the hospital not alive? I'm not accusing them of such wrongdoing, but that's what I heard. And I want to clear the record because I believe the oil and gas industry in this state, what I have observed, is very conscientious in health and safety. And I believe that this bill goes forward in the right direction. And I want the record to be clear. Thank you.
Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, let's be clear. This industry is allowed to place their operations next to people's homes where no other industry would do it. We wouldn't, if this were the dynamite industry, they couldn't do that. And explosions do happen, accidents do happen. These are hazardous operations that are being put by people. And not only do they explode 15 times last year, killing and maiming people, they off-gas carcinogenic gases, they off-gas methane that adds to climate change. You might have read the article about the ice melting faster than ever thought in Greenland today. They also off-gas VOCs that add to ozone and affect people's health. But the fact is that this industry is allowed to be near people and sited near people, even though we know the danger of it, and accidents do happen. 15 explosions last year. One family, 2 people from that family killed, and a worker in Meade, a worker in Briggsdale. These things do explode. They're dangerous. Somehow we think it's okay to put these close to people. And accidents do happen. And just to look at the Firestone tragedy, you can go back and look at how quality control probably would have solved that by when they reopened that well, when it was not shut in any longer. They could have had somebody look at the valves and make sure they were off. So this industry is all very dangerous, and they get a special pass, and they also get a special pass in private property rights. And the bill sponsor talked about how people use this as their nest egg. Well, that's true of any property owner, including those people who are condemned, force-pooled. And we enable, this is the only industry in the state we do this with. We enable them to come in and say, no, you don't get to exercise your property right as you want. You have to sell it to this company so that they can make a profit off of your property that was your nest egg. A woman in committee on another bill equated it to feeling like she was in China. And so, fair is fair. These people have special rights that nobody else, none of us have, and all of a sudden we're giving them another special right. And I firmly believe that we should have people's protection over people's profit in this case, and local governments should be able to exercise their land use discretion just like they do any other industry, especially one as dangerous as this. So I ask for a no vote on this bill.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 192. Are there any no votes? Senator Jones, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Fields, Senator Kafalis, Senator Guzman, Senator Garcia, Senator Fenberg, Senator Merrifield, Senator Todd, Senator Court, Senator Williams, Senator Aguilar, Senator Kagan, Senator Moreno. With Senator Kerr, Senator Donovan. With 19 ayes, 16 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 192 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Scott, Senator Lambert, Senator Lundberg, Senator Gardner, Senator Cook, Senator Crowder, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Neville, Senator Hill, Senator Tate, Majority Leader Holbert. Please add the President. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title of the House Bill 1254?
House Bill 1254 by Representative Van Winkle and Senator Smallwood concerning the modification of the foreclosure process on property that is encumbered by a deed of trust.
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. Smallwood. Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1254 on third reading, final passage. Ask for an aye vote.
Oh, too soon. Is there any further discussion? The motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1254. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1254 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Majority Leader Holbert, Senator Scott, Senator Smallwood, Senator Smallwood, Senator Smallwood, Senator Smallwood, Senator Neville, Senator Gardner, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Tate, Senator Lundberg, Senator Lambert, Senator Marble, Senator Priola, Senator Cook, Senator John. Please add President Smallwood. Or me. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of House Bill 1098.
House Bill 1098 by Representative Senator Gray and Senator Marble concerning expanding the expanded ability of the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission to finance the remediation of oil and gas locations.
Senator Marble.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 18-1098 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1098. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1098 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Scott, Senator John, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Tate, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Gardner, Senator Cook, Senator Moreno, Senator Coram, Majority Leader Holbert, Senator Neville, Senator Smallwood, Senator Lambert, Senator Donovan. Co-sponsors: On House Bill 1098, Senator Kerr, Senator Kafalas, Senator Todd, Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of Senate Bill 185.
Senate Bill 185 by Senator Smallwood and Representative Everett, concerning the use of deadly physical force against a person who has made an illegal entry into a place of business.
Senator Smallwood.
Mr. President, I move Senate Bill 185 on third reading, final passage.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Kagan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Please don't make Colorado a state where you can, with immunity, shoot anybody on a premises where you have a reasonable belief that they might use physical force, however slight, just because you didn't invite them onto the premises. That is the law of the jungle, and I urge a no vote.
Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. President. As many of you know, my husband actually is a critical care doctor, and he usually makes me wake up at 6 and leaves by 6:30, but yesterday morning he did not have to work. And so I told him about Senate Bill 185, and I didn't sort of preface anything, and I said that I was surprised that my colleague from Douglas County was bringing forward this bill, and that this is what the bill was and what it did. And he said, wow, that sounds like Trayvon Martin, doesn't it? My husband actually happens to be a man without color in his face, although he is a very colorful person, like a certain senator I know from Denver, and no one would argue with that if they've met him. Anyway, I was actually surprised at how naive I am, because I was really amazed that, that in reading this bill, everybody just didn't come to the same conclusion that I did. And the snide way I renamed this bill was the License to Kill Brown and Black People bill. And I think that part of my naivete is because many people actually did not grow up with, and I know the senator who brought this bill shared with me that he really does not have bias himself. And I'm grateful that there are many people, and perhaps none of my colleagues here have that kind of bias. But unfortunately, that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So what implicit bias is are thoughts and feelings that we are unaware of, or we're mistaken about their nature. We have a bias when, rather than being neutral, we have a preference for or aversion to a person or group of people. Thus, we use the term implicit bias to describe when we have attitudes towards people or associate stereotypes with them without our conscious knowledge. This is not intentional. A fairly commonplace example of this is seen in studies that show that white people will frequently associate criminality with black people without even realizing they're doing it. And when we were in our senatorial 5 here, I shared the story of when back in 1989, my husband and I were in Nairobi, Kenya, and we were walking the streets at night, and I said to my husband, you know, I realize I'm feeling scared. And he said, I am too. And we stepped back and thought about it, and I said, I think it's because we're surrounded by black people. Now remember, I'm in Nairobi, Kenya. What was I expecting? But it shocked me to see that I too had implicit bias. And it made me very sensitive to the fact that it exists even amongst those of us who would say we don't have an ounce of bias in us. And I know another one of my colleagues took that same test that Senator Smallwood did and did a little bit worse than him, but I forgive him. Anyway, so I wanted to read to you this article that was written by 2 female associate professors of law, and not all of the article, I did X out paragraphs, one from the University of Nevada and the other from Loyola, and they are also people without color in their face. And here is what they say. This was written back, of course, in 2013 after the killing of Trayvon Martin. It says, the acquittal of George Zimmerman for the killing of Trayvon Martin dealt a devastating blow to the collective psyche of many across the country, particularly African Americans. It served as a reminder that black life is valued less, viewed as a threat to be eliminated rather than members of a national community to be protected. The verdict was a bitter reminder of the ways in which African Americans are presumed to be criminals, and another confirmation that stereotypes can be used to justify the surveillance, stalking, and killing of black youth with impunity. They go on to say that in the wake of the jury's acquittal of Zimmerman, people across the country marched, rallied, and protested to express their collective disgust with the unequal system of justice represented by the Zimmerman verdict. The outrage and calls for change have focused particularly on Florida's Stand Your Ground law, the one that says you don't have to avoid needlessly killing by retreating before using deadly force. And do remember that is always an option, to retreat rather than use deadly force. And now I really am scratching out a lot. Reading one last paragraph on this page, it says, "We will not be saved by the repeal of Stand Your Ground laws because they are only a small piece of the larger picture of self-defense and racial profiling responsible for so many black deaths." Evidence, all of these laws make self-defense available in more situations, make it easier to claim, easier to justify the taking of a life, and they should all be examined closely. Self-defense ultimately comes down to whether someone had a reasonable fear of imminent death or serious bodily injury. Race is deeply implicated in such a question. In fact, it is impossible to take race out of self-defense law. Take, for example, the findings of recent studies by Dr. Jennifer Eberhardt of Stanford University, which suggest that significant levels of unconscious anti-black bias exist in all of us and shape negative perceptions of black men. In one study, Eberhardt notes that the mere presence of a black man, for instance, can trigger thoughts that he is violent and criminal. She goes on to note that merely thinking about blacks can lead people to evaluate ambiguous behavior as aggressive, to miscategorize harmless objects as weapons, or to shoot quickly and at times inappropriately. And I think that very much describes the situation that happened in Sacramento last week, where a young black man with a cell phone in his hand was killed in his grandparents' backyard. Not only do these implicit associations shape fear of black men by those who assert self-defense in homicide prosecutions, it also shapes how jurors view black victims and their willingness to accept the claim that defendants like Zimmerman were in reasonable fear of imminent death or serious body injury. This is a black and white issue. When blacks raise self-defense claims, however, they are far less likely to succeed. Instead, blacks are assumed to be the aggressor, the one inflicting harm rather than defending against violence. If you recall, there was a black gentleman in Minnesota who had a concealed carry permit, and when wanting to show the police that he had this weapon, he was shot and killed. Studies have found that witnesses to an assault of an unarmed black man by a razor-wielding white man began to misremember the black man as the one holding the razor after repeated tellings of the story. The study demonstrates that, like in Trayvon Martin's case, it is difficult for whites to imagine blacks to be victims of white violence. Rather, blacks are denied the right to be afraid or defend themselves. These implicit associations between blackness and criminality do not appear out of thin air. Rather, they represent the accumulation of overt and covert social policy that created and reinforced the link between blackness and criminality. Black criminality was used as justification for slavery and the basis for what came to be known as the Black Codes. Inherent black deviance was used to justify the creation of a new form of slavery known as convict leasing and chain gangs. Black criminality was part of the basic logic of Jim Crow and justification for racial segregation. Today, notions of black criminality undergird disproportionate policing and racial profiling across the country, particularly for drug crimes, despite the fact that studies have shown that blacks and whites engage in drug use at the same rates. Jurisdictions like New York City continue to defend racial profiling and stop and frisk policies despite their ineffectiveness and despite judicial challenges alleging that such policies are unconstitutional.
1 minute, Senator.
Thank you. I'll go on into my second 10 minutes. Thank you.
Very well.
Racial profiling by law enforcement in turn legitimizes private racial profiling by people like George Zimmerman. And I want to read that again. Racial profiling by law enforcement in turn legitimizes private racial profiling by people like George Zimmerman. It makes racial stereotyping a permissible means of interaction, and it helps sanction discrimination. To truly pay tribute to Trayvon Martin and others like him, we must address the policies and practices that criminalize Black people and leave them vulnerable to the public and private violence. And although I believe that my colleagues here have good intentions, I don't believe they really understand the true nature of implicit bias and the true risk that this bill brings to young people of color. I'm just going to close with why implicit bias matters from this is from, I forgot what university, I'm sorry, I printed it off without the title. It says, the mind sciences have found that most of our actions occur without our conscious thoughts, allowing us to function in our extraordinarily complex world. This means, however, that our implicit biases often predict how we'll behave more accurately than our conscious values. Multiple studies have also found that those with higher implicit bias levels against Black people, and these are by studies, are more likely to categorize non-weapons as weapons, and hence our fear with this bill. Non-weapons such as a phone for a gun or a comb for a knife. And in computer simulations, they're more likely to shoot an unarmed person if they are Black. Similarly, white physicians, and so physicians are not immune from this, who implicitly associate Black patients with being less cooperative, were less likely to refer Black patients with acute coronary symptoms for thrombolysis for specific medical care. And this has been borne out in study after study and shows why we have health disparities based on racial and ethnic patterns. And so it's clear that we need to play a role and have some leadership in acknowledging that implicit bias exists and ensuring that we don't create a pathway by which innocent lives are lost simply because of the color of their skin. And so I would beg you to vote no on Senate Bill 185.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I want to thank the good senator from Denver for describing what it's like to be Black in America. Kind of alters what I was going to say when she started talking about Trayvon Martin. Trayvon Martin was in a gated community because that's where his dad lived. But someone felt like he was out of place. He was out of place because he was tall, he was Black, and he had on a hoodie. And so someone comes along and they confront him. They confronted Trayvon Martin. And at the end of that encounter, he was left dead on the ground. And his defense, Zimmerman's defense, was based on stand your ground. He felt like he was threatened. He was threatened because a young man, I think he was 16 years old, minding his own business, coming from the store with a package of Skittles in his hands. And someone thought that he was out of place because he was Black in a gated community, and someone thought that he was going to steal, he was going to rob, or he was going to commit burglary. That assumption was made based on the color of his skin. And so what you have in Senate Bill 185 is an extension to stand your ground. And what it does, it extends the right to use deadly force against an intruder by owners, managers, and employees of businesses. Owners, managers, and employees of businesses. It goes on. The bill goes on to say that basically you can use force, deadly force, and get immunity. Blanket automatic immunity. I'm voting no on Senate Bill 185, and I hope you do too. I love living in the great state of Colorado. It is a great place for people to start businesses. Our economy is great, and small businesses are growing in our state. And Colorado companies and businesses are not looking to use deadly force. We can do better. Like I've been saying all along, is this the best solution that you have for Colorado businesses? Use deadly force? That is not the spirit of Colorado. We're innovators. And when you want to be innovator, you don't need to have a gun to do that. There's already protections that are in place. I read those statutes to you yesterday. There's already safeguards in place where business owners and employees can protect themselves. We don't need this message in this bill to extend stand your ground laws in Colorado. This bill is so far out of touch with the spirit of Colorado, and I can tell you what business owners want. They want to reduce red tape. They want to reduce redundancies. They want access to loans. Businesses are not asking to use deadly force. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, colleagues, this is a bill that is not about race or gender or sexual orientation. It is about citizens' safety and security and the protection of their businesses. Now, some of you who have served with me for a period of time in this and the other chamber may recall that I have said on multiple occasions that, 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago perhaps, before we had immunity for those citizens who protect their homes and their lives and their families, that I had some doubts about whether extending immunity to those citizens was right and appropriate and whether it would work in the real world. And as it turns out, that has worked well in Colorado. Much better than the system of citizens who use deadly force to protect their homes and their families in these circumstances, and these circumstances are limited. Much better than those citizens having to defend themselves in court in a criminal trial and spending many thousands of dollars and the anguish that follows having to defend their home. This bill extends that right to protect oneself, one's livelihood, one's business, and if it is like my business, I have family who works in that business, my family. When I came to the other chamber in 2007, a colleague of mine known as C. Gardner, as opposed to B. Gardner, carried this bill. I won't speak for him other than to say I believe he carried this bill for the reasons that my colleague from Douglas County carried this bill. And in that year and in that term, those of you who were here, as the senator from Wheat Ridge will recall, as the senator from Lakewood will recall, as we were in the House together, others of you as well, the Democratic Party controlled the House and the Senate. And my belief was, in committee that afternoon, the House Judiciary Committee, that this bill would surely die on a vote of 5 to 6. But just before the vote was taken, I remember it so well, one of my House Democratic colleagues, one of my Judiciary Committee colleagues, Representative Morgan Carroll. I've lost track of her. I'm not sure where she is. Representative Morgan Carroll told a compelling story. And in all seriousness, members, it was compelling. About how her father, an attorney, had been working late in his office. And this strikes home to me. I have done that, I hate to say, thousands of times. Working late in his office one night, and I don't remember whether it was a client or a witness or an opposing party, but someone came to his office with a knife. And I regret to say I don't remember all of the circumstances other than he was injured. I recall that he survived, but it was a very traumatic experience for her. And she said, then Representative Morgan Carroll, and for that reason, I will be a yes on this bill. And it passed from committee in 2007 on a 6-5 vote. Wasn't about race. It wasn't about hate. It wasn't about guns. It was about the simple ability to protect oneself when there is an unlawful entry, a crime to be committed, and the person there fears for their safety, fears for bodily injury. So much has been said on this side about what this bill is about, but every time I see this bill, and every time I vote on this bill, and every time over in the other chamber they punch the button. I don't know, some of you may not know, there's a button over there. Every time I vote on it, I remember that story. I remember Representative Carroll's story, and I say, your doubts, Bob, were resolved in that committee at that moment when you heard that story. And for that reason, I will be a yes on this bill. And I ask you, I ask those of you to consider that this bill is about the simple protection of one's livelihood, one's family, oneself, in the most harrowing, horrendous circumstances that one can imagine outside of one's home, in one's business, where one's livelihood is earned. I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Marble.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was a little surprised the other day when the conversation turned quite rapidly down another road on this bill as far as what it was actually going to do. And I was shocked because we know that business owners in the state of Colorado are everybody. And today was the first day that I heard a face with no color. I didn't even know what that means. My family is all colors, all everything, and I never saw them as anything, and none of us saw anybody as anything until I came to the Senate, and everything was so racially categorized because my family's my family. And when I see a business owner, he's my associate in business. You know, we don't care. 86,000 businesses are minority owned in the state of Colorado. This bill is for them too. And it's all encompassing. It's everybody as one. Protecting what is theirs and standing behind their right to defend themselves, no matter what color they are. You know, I'm just pretty amazed, you know, how something that is so all-inclusive for the benefit of all can turn so dark and horrible. And it's not. I want to be hand in hand with those almost 86,000 minority business owners and stand with them in their decision to protect what is theirs and their families. And I don't care who's busting through the door. If it's imminent threat and that minority business owner is in jeopardy of losing his life or her life, you know, I back their right to protect themselves. That's what this is about. It's about everybody. And I am a yes vote, and I stand proud with my minority-owned business people, and will always vote to protect them because they're my associates in business. And what happens to me happens to them. It doesn't make any difference about who they are. So please, let them protect themselves like everyone else.
Senator Kagan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I want to make clear one thing. I don't think any of us on this side of the aisle believe that this bill is intended to permit unjustified, racially motivated killings to go unpunished and indeed unprosecuted. I don't think any of us believe that any of the proponents of this bill intend that to happen or intend to facilitate that happening. But what we do fear and believe is that that would be the unintended consequence of this measure. And we believe it might be the unintended consequence of the measure because of the inherent biases that we all have. So I just want to make clear, we don't think that there is evil intent in the bill, but we do fear deeply that there could be unintended, terrible consequences from this bill. And that's why we're urging a no vote.
Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. President. And as is frequently the case, my colleague who just spoke is more eloquent than I expressing my feelings, so I will let those stand. But I did want to read something from, I did want to say that I remember, as my colleague from El Paso County, the debate over this legislation back then, and I remember being slightly disappointed in my friend Morgan Carroll for the position that she took, and that goes to say that there are varying opinions on this issue on both sides of the aisle. But I did want to set the record straight. So I immediately texted my friend Morgan Carroll, who says, I supported earlier versions that seemed more like defense of self at work as well as home. The more I looked into it, the more I saw problems with it. I think current self-defense laws cover you at home or work, and that stand your ground is really just a pretext for shoot first with disproportionate risk to profiled minorities. I just wanted to set the record straight on people's minds change, situations change, and some of the incidents that have occurred in the last few years, I think, are pretty significant to this debate that we're having today.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I want to thank my colleague from Cherry Hills Village, from Denver, from Aurora for their comments. And I think we've come to a place where we have an understanding about the motivations of this bill. I still think that there are misunderstandings when it comes to what this bill does versus the examples that my friends and colleagues are providing. Specifically when it comes to the wording in this bill that says that a business owner can protect themselves after unlawful entry has been made into their business and a crime has been committed. That's the difference. So when we hear about the killings of Trayvon Martin, for example, Trayvon Martin did not illegally enter a business and commit a crime. So using Trayvon Martin and relating it to this bill, I don't think is correct, and I don't think it's fair. Jordan Davis did not illegally enter a business, commit a crime, and was killed. Michael Brown did not illegally enter a business, commit a crime, and get killed. And the tragedy that we just saw in Sacramento with Stephon Clark did not illegally enter a building, commit a crime, and get killed. If we were talking about these examples and a bill that I was supporting, we would be having a very different conversation. These examples that keep getting thrown out there really mischaracterize what this bill is. This bill allows business owners to protect themselves when somebody illegally enters their business or their home and commits a crime. So for my colleagues, I appreciate the debate on this. We've had lots of lively debate. I would still ask for your support and your aye vote on Senate Bill 185. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 185. Are there any no votes? Senator Garcia, Senator Guzman, Senator Kafalos, Senator Fields, Senator Zinzinger, Senator Jones, Senator Moreno, Senator Kagan, Senator Court, Senator Fenberg, Senator Donovan, Senator Kerr, Senator Merrifield, Senator Todd, Senator Williams, Senator Aguilar. With 19 ayes, 16 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 185 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Majority Leader Holbert, Senator Scott, Senator Priola, Senator Lambert, Senator Lundberg, Senator Gardner, Senator Neville, Senator Marble, Senator Cook, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Hill, Senator John. Please add the President. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of the Senate Bill 52.
Senate Bill 52 by Senator Hill and Representatives Humphrey and Sang concerning the repeal of certain provisions concerning ammunition magazines.
Senator Hill.
President, I move Senate Bill 52.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Court.
Thank you, Mr. President. When I was growing up, my mom would say to me when I'd go to her and say, I need a new dress. I need a certain kind of sweater. I need this pair of shoes. My mom would say to me, there's a difference between want and need. Do you really need those things, or do you just want them? And I had to think about that. And I decided that really the majority of things I was asking for were things I wanted, with not really good reason, except I wanted them, but I didn't need them for anything. This bill is about want, not need. Certain people want more bullets available for target practice or hunting or whatever. But the only time you need more bullets is when you want to shoot a lot. And I suggest that no one in Colorado needs more bullets. You may want them, but you don't need them. And unfortunately, when they are available, the people who get them, more often than not, use them for something they want to do, not need to do. And it has horrid, horrid consequences. It happened at Columbine, it happened in Aurora, it happened at so many schools nationwide. We do not need more bullets available in Colorado. That's it, flat out. Many people may think they want them, but we do not need more bullets available for people who are going to do horrid things with them. I urge a no vote.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to be a no vote on Senate Bill 52 because what Senate Bill 52 intends to do, it wants to repeal the magazine limit. Right now in the state of Colorado, it was in 2013, the limit on magazines was restricted to 15. This bill wants to repeal that. Repeal it to the point that you can have as many bullets as you want in a chamber. So right now in the state of Colorado, you cannot have a magazine that's beyond 15 because they're not for sale. They're not for sale in Colorado. Nationally, there is this discussion about gun violence taking place in the state of Colorado and all across the nation and around the world. Young people just gathered, and they were marching for their lives because they want adults to address gun violence. And so when I spoke on this bill last night, I was asking the chamber, do you hear me? Do you hear me now? And the good senator who is sponsoring this bill said to me, yes, I hear you. He responded to me. But I think I was asking the wrong question. I don't think it's about do you hear me now? It's about do you hear them now? Are you listening? Are you hearing the young people as it relates to the sense of urgency, as it relates to this issue? Are you hearing them now? I would say you're not hearing them now. We just had a discussion about business owners now using deadly force. Really? You think the young people are asking for that? I would say no. And now we're talking about a bill to repeal what's in place, which is a 15 minimum limit that you can have on a gun. So for those of you who haven't been hearing what the young people are saying today, I thought I would share with you some quotes from the March for Our Lives, Marching for Our Lives. And here we are talking about expanding the magazine capacity in the state of Colorado. When we had two very serious mass shootings, one in Aurora, and then we also had Columbine. And this great state took swift action after Columbine. What they did is they closed the loophole for gun shows. There was a time when you could buy a gun at a gun show and you didn't have to have a background check. The citizens of Colorado, we approved that, we passed that. And then after the Aurora Theater shooting, what we did is we put a limit on the magazine capacity. And here we are trying to retreat and go back to a time that people have already said that they want us to address gun violence. So let me just read some quotes about what the students are saying. And I want you to hear them now, because this is not a solution for what they're seeking. This is not the best solution for the state of Colorado. This is what they say. We need to arm our teachers. We need to arm our teachers with paper and pens and the money that they need to support themselves and their families and the futures that sit in their classrooms. We are done hiding. We are done with these lockdown drills. We are done being full of fear. This is the beginning of the end. From here, we will fight. That was Ryan Dirch, Parkland Senior. Following a silence of 6 minutes and 20 seconds, very symbolic gesture, Emma Gonzalez said, "Since the time that I came out here, it's been 6 minutes and 20 seconds. The shooter has ceased shooting and will soon abandon his rifle, his AR-15. He will blend into the crowd with other students, and he escaped. And he walked free for an hour before he was arrested." She told the people that were there, "Fight for your life before it's someone else's job." Emma, I hear you. I'm fighting for my life. I'm fighting for your life too. When I was standing up here last night, I heard you all asking me, when is she gonna be done? How long is she gonna be up there? I was up here for 14 minutes doing my job, fighting for the lives of these students. 14 minutes is not a lot of time. The next quote is from Yolanda Renee King. She is 9 years old, and she is the granddaughter of Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King. And this is what she had to say. "My grandfather had a dream that his 4 little children would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream too, and that dream is enough is enough. And I want to live in a world that is gun-free. Period." She said that. Are you hearing? That was a baby, 9 years old, saying that. Enough is enough. Naomi Waller, this is what she had to say. She says that, "I am here to acknowledge and represent the African American girls whose stories do not make the front pages of every national newspaper, whose stories don't lead on the evening news. I represent the African American women who are victims of gun violence, who are simply statistics instead of vibrant, beautiful girls full of potential. For far too long, these names, these black girls and women, have just been a number. I'm here to say, never again for those girls, too. She was 11. Do you hear them now? Colorado should have a different response to what these young people are begging for. If they were here, they would not be supportive of Senate Bill 52. Next quote is from a Colorado student. This was a student that was at Columbine in that shooting in 1999. He survived the shooting, and he participated in the March for Our Lives. He says, "I've been waiting so long for something like this to happen.
1 minute, Senator.
This is just incredible. These children have achieved so much in a month than just adults have done in years. It's time for change. It's beyond time." David Hogue, we need to see real action from lawmakers. That actually recreates results and takes meaningful steps to save children's life. On an average day, 96 Americans are killed with guns. On an average day, there are nearly 13,000 gun homicides a year in the US. For every one person killed with guns, 2 more are injured. 7 children
10 minutes,
and
Senator.
teens are killed with guns in the US on an average day. I close with this, because mass shootings have one thing in common, and that's an assault weapon that should be used only for war and not in our streets. Columbine, 13 dead. Virginia Tech, 32 dead. Tucson, 6 dead. Sandy Hook, 28 children. Sutherland Springs, Texas, 26 children. Orlando, Pulse Nightclub, 49 people, assault weapon, high-capacity magazine. Las Vegas, concert, 58 people dead with an assault weapon using a high-capacity magazine. Parkland, 17 dead. Colorado, we can do better. And by promoting legislation to increase the capacity of magazines is just not the Colorado way, and it's not a Colorado solution. Vote no on Senate Bill 52.
Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had not intended to come down, but I was looking across the aisle and realized that last night when I talked about this study that maybe 3 of you were here. So you didn't hear this data, so I will repeat it today, just a couple of points. A study from the Texas State University shows that gun rampages in the United States have escalated. Public shooting rampages have spiked, in particular over the last few years. Many of the attackers were heavily armed. None of the shootings was stopped by an ordinary citizen using a gun. The data underscores a striking parallel that they found. The unprecedented spike in these shootings came during the period that saw this unprecedented spike, saw a wave of nearly 100 state laws making it easier to obtain, carry, and conceal firearms, just what we are doing here today. They found that a majority of mass shooters carried multiple weapons, and more than half of them used assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. I would urge, once again, a no vote on this legislation.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've had a lot of discussion on this, and just try to add a couple of points. One is I'm supporting this bill partially because, I mean, I could see this back in 2013 when we put it in place, that this is a very dysfunctional law. It's not enforceable. It it doesn't work, and it has some unintended consequences where some firearms don't come with smaller magazines. Not many, but some don't. And if I recall correctly, I believe the law also doesn't allow it allows the current owner to own that magazine, but they cannot pass that on to anyone else. And so if you have a weapon that has that magazine capacity, beyond 15 rounds, you can own it, but then technically it becomes illegal to pass it to your heirs, for example. Biggest issue, of course, is because there is a grandfather, and I think it's appropriate that at least they put the grandfather mechanism in there so that somebody who owned that legally, that size magazine, could continue to own that. You really can't distinguish between one that's legally owned and illegally owned. These are not registered, with serial numbers or anything of that sort. So it's a dysfunctional law in the first place, and it should never have become law. But there's a deeper argument that's being discussed here as well, and I think it's very important to bring out why I support legislation that does defend the individual citizens' right to defend themselves. A lot of discussion has been made about the increase in mass shooters, and they go to gun-free zones. They don't show up where they know the good guy is ready to take them down. And what occurs in those other areas is they don't go there. And when we put further and further restrictions on the law-abiding citizen, we inadvertently empower the bad guy. That's probably the biggest reason I support these issues. And it goes back to the Second Amendment itself. Why was that put in place as a part of the Bill of Rights? The initial founding documents for our nation? Because they understood that citizens needed the right to defend themselves in a variety of circumstances. And that's true today. It's probably more true today because there are so many dysfunctional people in our culture that need to be controlled. And the police are not always there to fix the problem. Far too often they're simply there to pick up the pieces after the tragedy has occurred. I support legislation that empowers legal citizens to defend themselves and to defend their families. And this bill is just one of those. I add this caution. I heard just a few minutes ago a quote from one of the students who said, "What I want to see is a gun-free world." Well, I'd like to see a cancer-free world and a whole lot of the other things that just isn't going to happen in this world. The reality is that we need citizens to be able to defend themselves and their families. And when we erode that, we're going the wrong direction. I believe this bill heads the right direction. It corrects a wrong that we put in place back in 2013. Please, Mr. President and anyone else who cares to listen, support this measure that takes a step in the right direction.
Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I urge a no vote on this bill. Members, I agree with the students that are rallying and standing up for themselves because they're the ones being adversely affected, but many others are too on this issue in mass shootings. And the 15-round magazine limit isn't it's not going to work in all cases, but it works in some cases. And I think when you can save some life, you ought to do it. You know, I had a conversation in this very building with a guy named Mark Kelly, who's Gabby Gifford's husband. And he told me in the shooting, it's Congress in a corner. A lot of us have town halls. This happened at a town hall like what we have, that every bullet shot by the shooter hit somebody. And I was going to read something, and somebody just called me there. So I looked it up. The shooter named Loeffner had a 9x19 millimeter Glock 19 semi-automatic pistol with a 33-round magazine. So 33 bullets went into flesh. 33. Every round hit somebody. And Loeffner stopped to reload, but dropped the loaded magazine from his pocket to the sidewalk where a bystander, Patricia Maish, grabbed it. Another bystander clubbed the back of the assailant's head with a folding chair, injuring his elbow in the process, representing the 14th injury. Loeffler was tackled to the ground by Bill Bridger, a 74-year-old retired United States Army colonel, who had also been shot himself. Loeffler was further subdued by Maish and bystanders Rich Silsgaber and Joseph Zamato. So, in those kinds of instances, somebody having to put a new magazine in, that saved lives. There's an account from Sandy Hook that same kind of thing saved lives. The Aurora Theater, we had a 100-round drum magazine in the AR-15, and in the handgun, a 40-round magazine. And this isn't, the be-all, end-all for this, but it is a common-sense thing. 15 rounds is a lot of ammunition. I can't remember the limits we have for hunters. I think it's, 6 rounds? And the only purpose really for that, aside from maybe target shooting and having fun, is to kill people. That is why these big magazines were designed in the first place, for military purposes. And I got to tell you, in 2013, that was an intense year when we passed this. Again, this is my 5th year talking about this issue. And we have graphic examples of how limiting magazines saves lives, and why, in the current environment we have now, with even more mass shootings, would we try to repeal this is beyond me. I have a hard time describing it in a nice way. I just think it's so wrong-headed of us, and such a wrong signal to send to Coloradans, to our country, and to the world, for that matter. So I ask for a no vote on this bill. It's a bad idea. Smaller magazines have the potential to save lives. We should be doing that. So I ask for a no vote on this bill.
Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had not intended to come back down, but there was reference made to the Second Amendment. And having been involved in this debate for so many years, I get very frustrated when the Second Amendment is used as a hammer when we try to regulate and create legislation for the safety of our citizens. And I happen to have on my desk an article from High Country News concerning the Second Amendment. And those who say the Second Amendment gives carte blanche, that there should never be any regulation on gun safety, are misinterpreting and forgetting history when it comes to the Second Amendment. Gun ownership and its regulation have always existed in American history. But as I said, misconceptions of the founding principles regarding the Second Amendment have led to its misuse in public discourse. Yeah. The Federalists who wrote the Constitution believed in a well-regulated liberty, as tyranny more often resulted from anarchy, not strong government. Consider 5 categories that our founding fathers used to regulate guns and gun use. Number 1, registration. All colonies, except Quaker-dominated Pennsylvania, enrolled white men aged 16 to 60 in state-regulated militias. They required them to keep track of privately owned weapons through a registry. That's back in the 1700s. That's back when the Bill of Rights was written. Public carry. While modern gun rights advocates tout the right to carry firearms in public, there was in fact a ban on traveling while armed in populated areas. Stand your ground laws. Oh my gosh. Under English common law, deadly force was a last resort. After retreat was no longer possible. Stand your ground laws emerged in the decades after the Civil War. Safe storage laws. Though now those laws are cast as government overreach, they were regarded as common sense back then and seen as part of citizens' freedom to enjoy public health and safety. And loyalty oaths. The founders engaged in large-scale disarmament of civilians during the American Revolution. The right to bear arms was conditional upon swearing a loyalty oath to the government. Those who refused were disarmed. As the Founding Fathers believed, the Second Amendment does not keep us from having the opportunity as legislators to protect the safety of our citizens. I would urge you to help protect the safety of our citizens and vote no on this bill.
I believe I had Senator Kagan and then Senator Priola. Queue.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, since 2013, here in Colorado, it has been unlawful to manufacture a high-capacity magazine in excess of 15 rounds. It has been unlawful here in Colorado to sell from one Coloradan to another a high-capacity magazine with a capacity of more than 15 rounds. We have paid the political price in Colorado for making this step. As many of you know, we lost 2 members of the Senate as a result of that step. We have paid the political price. And those of us who, like me, have enjoyed the use of high-capacity magazines on semi-automatic rifles, and it is enjoyable to not have to change magazines, to be able to run off 30, 40 rounds at a time. I've experienced that. I enjoy it. But we who enjoy that are willing to pay the price, just as we have paid a political price, the price of not being able to engage in that particular type of entertainment because we want other states to join us in eventually eradicating these high-capacity magazines. We want other people to join the students and the marchers and the grieving relatives and the families of people. We want you to join those who live in terrible neighborhoods plagued by the presence of these semi-automatic rifles coupled to high-capacity magazines. We want other people to join us so that eventually we will live in a nation, not just a state, but a nation that says, no, you cannot manufacture, you cannot transfer, and yes, you cannot enjoy the entertainment of a high-capacity magazine attached to a semi-automatic rifle. That is a concession that we, many of us, are willing to make. This is a movement. Yes, it is not a law that is easily enforced when it is in one state at one period of time, but it is an enforceable law. It has been enforced here in Colorado. We want it to spread. We make no bones about that. We want to see a time when these high-capacity magazines are not available. And it is a movement, members. And that movement will be absolutely stopped in its tracks if you vote yes on this repeal. It will be stopped in its tracks. Do not stop that movement in its tracks. It can be done, but only if we remain steadfast in leading, as we have led since 2013, the way toward a safer world for our citizens all across the nation. It is a concession of entertainment value that we are willing to make. Let us not go backwards now. We are in the lead. We are making progress. It is not as fast as we would wish. But when you are making progress that is not as fast as you wish, that is not the time to just give up the ghost and go back on the mission. Don't quit. Don't vote yes on this bill. Thank you.
Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. President. And members, I just want to get up here and say how proud I am that our country has the Second Amendment and the First. And as exhibited by the number of people who have come down here and have spoken for or against, I think we need to keep that in mind, that those two are so closely linked in our founding documents. And I've noticed through my life the correlation of countries that don't have the Second Amendment, they don't really have the First either.
Senator Fields was next. Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, you heard a senator down here at the well indicate that the repeal is what's necessary. He also said that the bill that we're looking at is not enforceable. He also said that it was a dysfunctional law to have in place, and it doesn't work. I would beg to differ, and I believe that the good senator who was just up here at the mic explained why. And I support his explanation because we are a nation of laws. And in the state of Colorado, we are governed and bordered by laws. And so when you think about this limit that we have right now on high-capacity magazines, it's reasonable. It's a reasonable measure to save lives. I can't imagine telling some of the victims of the Aurora Theater shooting that, that we're going to repeal high-capacity magazine laws that are on the books. It would be hard for me to talk to Tom Sullivan to say that's what we did. We don't get to park any way we want to at the malls. We don't park in front of fire hydrants because there's laws against those kinds of things. We are a nation of laws. And so to have a law restricting the capacity of ammunition to 15 is a law that is enforceable. So the question is not whether the law can be enforced. It's up to law enforcement to enforce it because that's our law. It does work. And it is saving lives. And so when I think about the 11 children in Sandy Hook, they were able to escape that deadly scenario because he was trying to reload his high-capacity magazine. And while he was reloading, 11 kids were able to escape. When you have a high-capacity magazine and you're pulling the trigger because you want to shoot as many bullets as you can. And so when you limit at 15, when someone is trying to escape that type of mass shooting, it gives people more time to get out of harm's way. Why are we giving citizens the opportunity to have a magazine that can hold hundreds of bullets or 60s of bullets? You can still have many clips that would hold 15, and it only takes like 3 seconds to reload. It's not an inconvenience, but it's a law that could keep us safer. Our streets, in our churches, in our theaters, in our communities do not need more bullets. The Aurora Theater shooter, his gun jammed, giving more people an opportunity to escape. The same scenario in Tucson. Gabby Gifford was at a grocery store. When he was trying to reload, 2 stand-byers came over and they tackled the shooter, preventing more opportunities for people to escape that scenario and save lives. This is what this bill should be about. It should be about saving lives and giving people the opportunity to escape when they're in a scenario where there's a shooter with an assault weapon who has high-capacity magazine with these unlimited numbers of bullets. It's a law that we should put in place because it protects the lives of the future, which is our kids, our parents, our family, everyone we love. Please say no to Senate Bill 52.
Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, one of the biggest challenges we face down here in any issue that is, or potentially a divisive issue, is a question of trust. I believe every single one of us in this legislature has a vision, a shared vision of people being safer, being able to enjoy their livelihood, their families, their businesses, achieve their hopes and dreams. That is a shared vision I believe we all have. The challenge we have is when it comes down to policy and how we get there. And I think that's an important thing. If we could focus somehow on that shared vision. Now, the good senator from Aurora just said that this should be about people being safe. This should be about people being safer in situations where they may run against someone, and she used the term high-capacity magazine. In some cases, those are standard capacity magazines. But she made a great point here. This bill should be about making sure people can be protected. And colleagues, that's exactly what this bill is about. When it comes to trust, and we start talking about terminology, we throw around a lot of things. Assault weapons, 15 bullets in a chamber. And to my good colleague from Aurora, I'm not sure what kind of chamber that would be, unless it was the chamber of maybe one of the old Gatling guns or multi-barrel guns. But you can't really put 15 bullets in a chamber. But it creates some doubts, and I have to be honest with you, it creates some doubts to those people that are gun owners who say, as we focus on policy that is going to affect every man, woman, and child, but every law-abiding citizen who can own a firearm, I think it's important that we at least demonstrate that we have an understanding of what we're talking about. And I think that was a challenge in 2013. We had a congressperson who said, magazines, what are you worried about magazines? Just throw them away when you're done. I mean, we can laugh at these things, but I think it creates a problem of trust and a problem of how we get to that shared vision. To those young students who are looking to be able to have an opportunity to live their lives and to be able to achieve their hopes and dreams. And a number of them have come down to the legislature, and I applaud them for coming down here. I spoke with the group the other day, and they said, Senator, we're concerned. We talked about issues. We talked about the safety. One of the things I had to challenge them about was I said, what are you doing to be safer? And they looked at me a little bit concerned, and they said, Senator, what are you doing? And I said, you know, that is a great question. And we will have the opportunity. I sat in on some debate yesterday over in the House. Granted, I know it's the House, folks, so excuse me when I say that. It sounded like some very good debate on an amendment. If it doesn't get stripped off by our Joint Budget Committee, I think that's a very positive amendment that offers an opportunity to help protect and safeguard our children in schools. Now, raise your hand if you're in favor of that, an amendment or something that would help protect our children in schools. Okay, well, that's okay. You don't have to raise your hand, but I think everybody is probably in favor of that. I would hope. We've heard a lot of other things we've heard a lot about race and everything today. I want you to remember something. There was a comment on another bill regarding black codes. And I want you to understand history. This is very important because one of the things that we should be doing, and I think we fail tremendously with our youth, is to make sure they understand the history of the United States, particularly, in this case, the history of the Second Amendment, the history of the right to keep and bear arms, and why it is so critical and so important in protecting all of our other God-given inalienable rights. Now, growing up in the South, I learned some things in school, and there were a lot of things I didn't learn in school, but I was an inquisitive guy, and so I studied, and I read many different resources. And one of the things that I found interesting was that one of the major calls for gun control and restrictions were by Southern whites after the Civil War. They understood that freed black men or freed previous slaves, if they had firearms, they had the capacity to protect themselves and their families. And then they had the capacity also to be not enslaved again by a society where they may be possibly a minority or not have that kind of power. That really stuck with me, colleagues. That really stuck with me. Because as I studied history more and more, I realized it's never a majority that is being enslaved or in a position where where a government might come in or some power might come in and try to usurp their abilities to be free, to actually exercise liberty. It's always the minority first. It could be a variety of minorities. If you take a look at it, it doesn't matter if you're talking about whatever country you're talking about. One of the natural focuses is some level of firearms control. One of the things that really upsets me, I won't say upset. This one doesn't really upset me. I find it interesting. And I thank my colleague from Greenwood Village who said, this is a mission. And I believe it is, by some. I believe by some it's a mission to totally get rid of the Second Amendment. I don't believe that's the majority of people. I don't believe that's the majority of people that are in this chamber. However, it is a mission by some. So the question is, to what degree? But then the good senator from Greenwood Village said, This is a concession because you're going to have to give up your entertainment value. Well, colleagues, in a certain situation, it's not about entertainment. It is about being able to protect yourself and those around you. And let me ask you this. Is it legal to purchase a high-capacity magazine, what is called a high-capacity magazine, a standard capacity for many, over 15 rounds in the state of Colorado? And I've talked to some of my friends in law enforcement. They say, well, sure. If we're a LEO, we're a law enforcement officer, we can go in and buy as many of those magazines as we want. Now, I don't have a problem with that or a challenge with that. The other question that came up is, why are we giving citizens the right to purchase these? To me, that is a fundamental failure in either, I won't say education, but understanding what the Second Amendment was all about. It is about empowering citizens. It is about empowering citizens. And my biggest frustration, now this one does frustrate me, is when somebody says, the only reason you have a larger capacity magazine or 15 rounds or more is because it's to kill people. Now, colleagues, when you go out on the street and you see our law enforcement officers and you ask them, is your main reason to kill people? Is that why you have that firearm? You ask our military personnel.
1 minute, Senator.
Thank you, sir. You ask our military personnel, did you take this uniform and this firearm, which has more than 15 rounds, was your main purpose to kill people? I think every single one of them would say, my main purpose is to protect and defend every single one of the people in here. That's a problem when we start projecting on people what this might be. So, colleagues, I urge and I vote on Senate Bill 52 because, as the good senator from Aurora said, this should be about protecting people, and that's exactly what this is about. This bill is about.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this law was passed in 2013, which was my very first session as a freshman in the House. And this was painful for me because many of you may know I'm not exactly a person who embraces conflict and controversy. And so talking about this issue was tough. And I had my doubts about this law. So much so that I got myself placed on the NRA's list of potentially flippable Democrats. And I'll tell you, that is not a list you ever want to be on. I've had a lot of time to think about my vote. I've had 4 years to think about the vote I took in favor of this law. And colleagues, I don't regret it for a second. This is a tough issue. Guns and the Second Amendment, it's a core difference between many of the political parties. Actually, it even goes past political party ideology. And many will say that it's not the gun, that is merely an instrument. It is the tool used, and if someone is bent on inflicting harm and pain and damage, they will find a way to do it. I believe that's true. That is true. But colleagues, I also believe that the proliferation of guns in our society is also a problem. And that's an issue that we have not mustered the political courage to address. And until we do, I will continue not to regret my vote in favor of this law, and I will be a no on this bill today.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 52? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 52. Are there any no votes? Senator Jones, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Fields, Senator Guzman, Senator Moreno, Senator Kagan, Senator Court, Senator Kerr, Senator Fenberg, Senator Kafalas, Senator Merrifield, Senator Todd, Senator Williams, Senator Aguilar. With 21 ayes, 14 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 52 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Holbert, Senator Scott, Senator Priola, Senator Lambert, Senator Lundberg, Senator Smallwood, Senator Gardner, Senator Marble, Senator Neville, Senator Cook, Senator Crowder, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Sonnenberg. Please add the President. Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Because we have a committee that was intending to meet at 10:30, I move to lay over the balance of the calendar to Monday, April 2nd.
Motion is to lay over the balance of the calendar till Monday, April 2nd. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the balance of the calendar will lay over till Monday, April 2nd. Announcements. Senator Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Select Energy and Environment Committee will meet right now.
Senator Marble.
Thank you, Mr. President. The good senator and I request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Today, colleagues, we want to pay tribute to the National Federation of Independent Business. And it reads, the Colorado Senate, convened in the second regular session of the 71st General Assembly, hereby extends heartiest congratulations and commendation to National Federation of Independent Business. Today we give tribute to the National Federation of Independent Business for its representation of small businesses in our great state of Colorado. The NFIB began on April 4th, 1949 to represent the interests of small businesses. Today, small businesses in Colorado number nearly 600,000, of which 85,809 are minority-owned and employ 1.1 million. The NFIB echoes the voices of small businesses to protect the free market competition upon which the economic well-being and security of Colorado depends. On request of Senator Vicki Marble and Senator Tim Neville, given this 29th day of March 2018, State Capitol, Denver, Colorado, signed Kevin J. Grantham.
Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I know you're all ready to get out of here and get to your next committee assignments, so I'll be brief. We see a lot of people down here that represent a lot of folks. When it comes to the business side, usually they're large businesses that can actually afford that representation and actually come down here and exercise their First Amendment rights to petition for grievances and other issues. However, the National Federation of Independent Business is about smaller businesses. And a lot of people used to say, the old saying used to be in this country, what's good for big business is good for America. Well, frankly, what's good for big business is good for big business. I can tell you that what's good for small business is good for all business. And what's good for small and all business is actually good for America, to achieve our hopes and dreams and allow people to exercise their freedom to climb the ladder to whatever it is they choose to achieve. So, colleagues, I stand in full support with the senator here and the work, the good work and the solid work that National Federation of Independent Business does.
Senator Crowder next.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today, March 29th, is National Vietnam War Veterans Day. I tell all of my Vietnam comrades, welcome home, enjoy your day. It's a day that, you know, it has been a long time coming, and it's a very, very welcome day. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Court.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've been remiss all week in not reminding you that there is a wonderful exhibit from the Denver Housing Authority in the highlighting the 8 decades of historical work that the Denver Housing Authority has done. It's on the first floor in the north foyer. It will be there through tomorrow. I apologize for not having gotten around to announcing it earlier this week. Thank you.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to remind folks about the Denver Auto Show next week. There's information about it in this AAA packet that you received on your desk a few days ago. We're all invited to attend, see what's happening. I've been told that even cyclists are allowed to go to it, so I hope to see you there. Thank you.
Senator Kafalis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, colleagues. If I might have your attention for as long as you're able to give it. It has been 20 days since I last spoke at the Well regarding the issue of sexual harassment at the state capitol, an issue that hangs over all of us every day we are assembled here to do the people's work. Once again, I rise as a matter of conscience and integrity to speak truth to power because I believe it is the right thing to do given no other recourse. Once again, my hope is that I may reach a few hearts or at least cause us all to pause and reflect on our place in this hallowed institution, the Colorado General Assembly, and our place in the world. As I've stated before, regardless of ideologies and politics, we're all in this together, and we have a responsibility to do the right thing to address sexual harassment in this workplace, the Colorado General Assembly, the People's House. This week is Passover for Jews and Holy Week for Christians, although Orthodox Easter is next week. For me, Passover means lots of things, but foremost it means a people journeying to liberation and freedom. With regard to Holy Week, and this being Monday or Holy Thursday, that's important to me as a Christian. It has a lot of significance, but I think foremost for me, it signifies that at the Last Supper, when Christ was with the disciples, he expressed his willingness to sacrifice, to be vulnerable, and to display immense courage. He also told the disciples perhaps what's viewed as an 11th commandment, and that is to love one another. I submit that loving one another includes having the courage and the fortitude to take responsibility for our actions and accept the consequences when such actions are wrong. As we close International Women's Month, we have taken time to recognize the extraordinary social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women throughout history and today. Nevertheless, in this place, there is an inherent power balance, and we must have the courage to recognize that. Sexual harassment undermines, in my opinion, this 11th commandment, the importance of loving one another and the importance of trust. I was given an article in today's Denver Post, and I would just like to share a couple of paragraphs of that article. The article is entitled, "Sexual Harassment, All Female U.S. Senators Want Debate." Washington, the Senate must begin debating legislation helping people who work in Congress pursue claims of sexual harassment or discrimination. All 22 female senators said Wednesday in a letter to the chamber's leaders. Inaction is unacceptable, the group wrote to the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican from Kentucky, and Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat from New York. The letter, signed by the 18 Democratic and 4 Republican women, was an unusual bipartisan display of public pressure on party leaders. We, the members of the Senate, ought to conduct ourselves in accordance with the highest moral, ethical, and legal standards in our official duties and in our private lives. Please allow me to share a paragraph from a legal opinion regarding sexual harassment laws. Sexual harassment in the workplace is a form of gender discrimination prohibited by Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act. These statutes were designed to address the problem of invidious discrimination in employment, including severe or pervasive sexual harassment and assault. The laws require employers who become aware of sexually harassing behavior by supervisors or employees to promptly investigate allegations and take any corrective action needed. The language of these civil laws is mandatory, not discretionary. Put another way, an employer who has been alerted to an issue of sexual harassment, whether by a supervisor or a coworker, has an affirmative legal obligation to take prompt and effective remedial action. Colleagues, I believe we need to keep our eyes on the prize. And we need to have imagination, moral imagination, to create a dignified and respectful workplace for women, and how this benefits not only women, but men and the institution. This requires moral courage. Moral courage is difficult. I choose, you know, it's been said, why do we come up here every day? It has been 46 days, I believe, since the resolution that I will speak to in a moment was presented. You know, why do we persist? One reason I choose to persist is because I stand for the women in solidarity, side by side, in the Capitol and outside the Capitol. Allow me one quote and my final statement. This is a quote from Dorothy Day. Some of you may know who Dorothy Day is. A Catholic. She helped co-found the Catholic worker movement. People say, what is the sense of our small effort? They cannot see that we must lay one brick at a time, take one step at a time. A pebble cast into a pond causes ripples that spread in all directions. Each one of our thoughts, words, and deeds is like that. No one has a right to sit down and feel hopeless. There is too much work to do. For this reason, colleagues, and thank you for your attention, we, the members of the Senate Democratic Caucus, respectfully ask that the Senate resolution we prepared and submitted for introduction on February 13th, 46 days ago, entitled Concerning the Expulsion of the Senator from Northwestern Colorado, for sexual harassment of a legislative employee be promptly introduced and brought to the floor of the Senate for debate. I think this is the right and proper thing to do. Mr. President, colleagues, I'm very grateful for the time you've given me. Thank you.
Any further announcements? Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. Another necessary announcement regarding Senate Health and Human Services today at 1:30. First of all, we're moving rooms. We're going to meet in room 357 instead of 354. Also, there is a calendar change. We're going to be hearing Senate Bill 214 after the senator from Denver and I present House Bill 1211. So Senate Bill 214 is moving on the calendar below House Bill 1211. Thank you, colleagues.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I don't know if the guests that we're visiting here today from Peace with Christ group is still, I don't think they're still here, but I did want to say hello. And also, for those of you that are basketball enthusiasts, I would encourage you to tune in on Saturday night to see two #1 teams play, the Kansas Jayhawks, Rock Chalk, and I think that Villanova team. So obviously, you know my preference. Cast your bets, enjoy the game, and Rock Chalk Jayhawk.
Any further announcements? Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that. Oh, hold on. Do we have any bills to read over? Okay.
It won't matter if we read them over this afternoon or Monday morning when it comes to the.
They're going to be Tuesday?
Approach isn't until Tuesday morning anyway.
So we don't need to.
Yeah, they've got 11 more bills to get through, so.
Okay. So we're done. Thank you, Mr. President. Members, we will not meet tomorrow. Wish you a happy Good Friday, a peaceful Good Friday with you and your family. Because we will not be here tomorrow, Mr. President, I move the Senate adjourn until 10 a.m. Monday, April 2nd, 2018.
The motion is for the Senate to adjourn until 10 a.m. Monday, April 2nd. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will be adjourned.